Hi students, let's talk about federalism. You would recall that one of the key changes made in the constitution of Belgium was to reduce the power of the central government, to give those powers to the regional governments. Regional governments existed in Belgium even earlier. They had their roles and powers. But all these powers were given to the central government and could be withdrawn by the but all these powers were given to these governments and could be withdrawn by the central governments. The change that took place in 1993 was that the regional governments were given constitutional powers that were no longer dependent on the central government. Thus, Belgium shifted from a unitary to a federal form of government. Sri Lanka continues to be, for example, practical all purposes, a unitary system where the national government has all the powers. Tamil leaders want Sri Lanka to become a federal system. Federalism is a system of government in which the power is divided between a central authority and various constituent units of the country. Usually, a federation has two levels of government. One is the government for the entire country that is usually responsible for a few subjects of common national interest. The others are governments at a level of provinces or states that look after much of the day-to-day administering of the state. Both these levels of government enjoy their power independent of the other. Hi students. In this sense, federations are contrasted with unitary governments. Under the unitary system, either there is only one level of government or the subunits are subordinate to the central government. The central government can pass on orders to the provincial or the local government. But in a federal system, the central government cannot order the state government to do something. The state government has powers of its own which is not answerable to the central government. Let us look at some of the key features of federalism. 1. There are two or more tiers of government. 2. Different tiers of jurisdiction of government govern the same citizens, but each tier has its own jurisdiction in the matters of legislation, taxation, and administration. 3. The jurisdiction of the respective levels or tiers of government are specified in the Constitution. So the existence and authority of each tier of government is constitutionally guaranteed. 4. The fundamental provisions of the Constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by one level of government. Such changes require the consent of both levels of government. 5. Courts have the power to interpret the Constitution and the powers of different levels of government. The highest court acts as an empire if disputes arise between different levels of government in the exercise of their respective powers. 6. Sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure its financial autonomy. The federal system thus has dual objectives: to safeguard and promote unity of the country, while at the same time accommodate regional diversity. Hi students, let's talk more about federalism. Two aspects are crucial for the institutions and practice of federalism. Government at different levels should agree to some rules of power sharing. They should also trust each other that would abide by its part of the agreement. An ideal federal system has both aspects: mutual trust and agreement to live together. The exact balance of power between the central and the state government varies from one federation to another. This balance depends mainly on the historical context in which the federation was formed. The first route involves independent states coming together on their own to form one bigger unit, so that by pooling sovereignty and retaining identity, they can increase their security. This type of coming together federations include the USA, Switzerland, and Australia. The second route is where a larger country breaks up into small constituents like states and national governments. India, Spain, and Belgium are examples of this kind of holding together federations. In this second category, we in this second category, the central government tends to be more powerful. Hi students, let's talk about federalism. India had emerged as an independent nation after a painful and a bloody partition. Soon after independence, several princely states became part of the country. The constitution declared India as a union of states. The constitution originally provided for a two-tier government of systems or two-tier system of government, the union government and the state government. The constitution originally provided for a two-tier system of government, represented the Union of India and state governments. A third tier of federalism was added to the form of panchayat and municipalities. Union list includes subjects of national importance such as defense, foreign affairs, banking, communications, currency, etc. They are included in this list because we need a uniform policy on these matters throughout the country. The union government alone can make laws relating to the subjects mentioned in the union list. State list contains subjects of state and local importance such as police, trade, commerce, irrigation, forest, trade unions, marriage, adoption, and succession. Both the union as well as the state governments can make laws on the subjects mentioned in the list. If the law conflicts with each other, the law made by the union government will prevail. We noted above that most federations that are formed by holding together do not give equal power to their constituent units. Some states enjoy special status such as Assam, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram. They enjoy a special power under certain provisions of the Constitution of India due to their peculiar social and historical circumstances. These special powers are especially enjoyed in relation to the protection of land rights of indigenous people, their culture, and also preferential employment in government services. Indians who are not permanent residents of the state cannot buy land or house here. Similar special provisions exist for some other states of India as well. There are some units of the Indian government which enjoy very little power. These are areas which are too small to become independent but could not merge with any of the existing states. These areas like Chandigarh, Lakshadweep or the capital city of Delhi are called union territories. These territories do not have powers of a state. The central government has special powers in running these areas and provides assistance to these small areas. Hi students, let's talk more about federalism. Constitutional provisions are necessary for the function or success of federalism, but they are not sufficient. If the federal experiment has succeeded in India, it is not because merely of the clearly laid out constitutional provisions. The real success of federalism in India can be attributed to the nature of democratic politics in our country. The creation of linguistic states was a first and major test for domestic politics in our country. If you look at the political map of India when it began its journey after its democracy in 1947 and that of 2019, you'll be surprised by the extent of the changes. Many old states have vanished and many new states have been created. Areas, boundaries, names of states have been changed. In 1947, the boundaries of several old states of India were changed to create new states. This was done to ensure that people spoke the same language, lived in the same state. Some states were created on the basis of language but to recognize differences based in culture, ethnicity, or geography. These states, like Nagaland, Uttarakhand, and Jharkhand, when the demand for the formation of states on the basis of language was raised, some national leaders feared that it would lead to disintegration of the country. The central government resisted linguistic states for some time, but the experience has shown that the formation of linguistic states has actually made the country more united. It has also made administration easier. A second test for Indian Federation is the language policy. Our constitution did not give the status of national language to any language. Hindi was identified as the official language, but Hindi is the mother tongue of only 40% of Indians. Much of the government work takes place in official language of the concerned state. Restructuring the center state relations is one more way in which federalism has been strengthened. How the constitutional arrangements for sharing power work in reality depends to a large extent on how the ruling parties and leaders follow these arrangements. For a long time, the same party ruled both at the center and in most of the states. This meant that the state government did not exercise their rights as autonomous federal units. As and when the ruling party at the state level was different, the parties that ruled at the center tried to undermine the power of the states. In those days, the central government would often misuse the constitution to dismiss the state governments that were controlled by rival parties. This undermined the spirit of federalism. All this changed significantly after 1990. This period saw the rise of regional parties in many states of the country. This was also the beginning of the era of coalition governments at the center. No single party got a clear majority in the Lok Sabha. The major national political parties had to enter into an alliance with many parties, including several regional parties, to form a government at the center. This led to a new culture of power sharing and respect for the autonomy of state governments.